In the latest on the Silicon Valley Bank saga, reports say HSBC Bank has acquired Silicon Valley Bank UK for £1. The development has come as Britain was battling to limit any damage to its industry. Now, given the importance of the lender to some customers, more than 250 UK tech firm executives signed a letter addressed to Hunt on Saturday, calling for government intervention and warned of an existential threat to the UK tech sector. Friday's dramatic failure of SVB Financial Group, which focuses on tech startups primarily, was the biggest bank collapse in the US since the 2008 financial crisis. Meanwhile, experts say Indian startups that have deposits at SVB might be impacted as well. Regulators confirmed on Sunday night that all deposits will be returned. Reports say the collapsed bank had invested in around 21 Indian startups, including Bluestone, Carvale, and Loyalty Rewards. However, no significant investments have been made in Indian startups after 2011. The situation is particularly dire for startups backed by the Silicon Valley Accelerator, Y Combinator or YC, which with at least 40 YC-backed Indian startups having between $250,000 to $1 million each in deposits with SVB. However, the Indian government is going to take stock of the situation, with Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar having organized a meet with Indian startups this week to understand the impact. Earlier, some big venture capital firms, including Peter Thiel Fund, had advised companies to exit Silicon Valley Bank. Panic spread across the startup world last week as worries about the financial health of Silicon Valley Bank prompted Peter Thiel's founders, fund and other prominent venture capitalists to advise portfolio businesses to withdraw their money. Venture firm Tribe Capital has also advised its portfolio companies to move some of their balances from SVB. We are now being joined by Madan Sabnavis, who is the Chief Economist at Bank of Baroda. Mr. Sabnavis has been the Chairman and Co-Chairman of committees of BCCI and IMC. Welcome to WION, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, the tech industry is the biggest customer of the Silicon Valley Bank with a large number of Indian startups. How badly do you feel these firms are going to be affected?
See, prima facie, it does appear that the harm to the tech sector is very much limited right now. But we need to see how conditions do evolve, because we should remember one thing, that the startups which have been right at the core of this particular problem are the ones which also tend to be more vulnerable in the entire process of funding. A, you get venture capitalists to fund you. B, at least in the Indian case, we have seen them going in for the IPOs, which have not always done very well. And third, you have these kind of exposures which they have to global banks. Now, SVC, to my mind, is not really a very large bank. I don't think too many of us have really heard of it until this particular crisis did erupt last week. So I would tend to think that probably the exposure will be very much limited to a handful of firms. And given the kind of an assurance which has been provided by the US government that there will be compensation, or rather the deposits which have been placed with SVB are going to be safe, there should not be any kind of a problem. But I think going ahead, there will definitely be concerns when there are these startup firms about how exactly are they going to garner their resources. Because we all know that historically it's been seen that the fatality, or rather the mortality rate of startups is quite high. 70 to 80% do have problems in the first 3 years, which means that those who are normally funding the startups will probably be a bit more cautious when they're doing so. So I think the problem is more on the startup side rather than the banking system, because if you look at the Indian banking system, it's fairly strong. I would say it's very strong, in fact. And these kind of exposures would be very much limited to really create problems for the financial system. But definitely from the point of view of startups, I think there would be concerns until there's more clarity, which we get both from what the US government provides as well as what the Indian government does.
Sir, in the United States, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation said that depositors will have access to their insured deposits, but that has been capped at $250,000. Now, the startups have been referred to a toll-free number. There's widespread panic. What's next for these startups?
So I think there will be concern, as I mentioned earlier, that when you say $250,000 may not really be a very large amount. So it depends upon what kind of exposures these startups, the kind of deposits which these startups have put with SVB Bank. And while there's an assurance because you have this insurance which covers you for $250,000, but I would tend to think that even if you go by what's happened in the past, I think the government will make sure that the deposit holders do receive all their funds. Though right now there's only a guarantee of up to $250,000, which may not be much because I'm quite sure that there'll be quite a few of these startups, not just Indians, but also globally, where the amounts will be much larger.
There's obviously a lot of rush on the toll-free numbers as well. Startups are waiting desperately to get their turn, to have themselves heard. A lot more to unravel in times to come. Thank you so much for all those updates, sir.